Let's talk more about the issue of hijacked buildings in Johannesburg and broader Gauteng, in fact, and speak about the lack of affordable housing as well for many poor people in the metro. We're joined now by the former Joburg Human Settlements MMC Mlungisi Mabaso. A very good evening to you, sir. Grateful for your time. As someone who's actually sat in council and been MMC for housing in Johannesburg, why has the metro failed to deal with this problem properly?
Thank you very much, Tim. Greetings to yourself and also to the viewers. Well, the reality is that there has been no political will. And secondly, the system of the city of Johannesburg has not been that friendly towards rejuvenating the inner city and protecting the infrastructure within the inner city. If you go to the systems of the municipality and ask who's really responsible for the management of the inner city, you will not get a clear response. And those that are responsible do not have powers in a way to even institute consequence management for non-performance of the officials that are deployed to work within the inner city. And the reality is that most of the properties that are owned by the city itself are managed by Johannesburg Property Company. But you have not heard a single word from officials who are employed by Johannesburg Property Company taking accountability for all the wrongdoings that are taking place within the inner city. You have not heard them saying anything about the hijacked building. So there is a problem with our systems, but there is also issues of political will, because if politicians come to offices and not provide or devise a clear strategy on how they are going to tackle the issues that affect the people that are residing within the inner city, and also protection of infrastructure within the inner city, everything that is happening will continue to happen.
Right.
Because there are no programs in place that are put in place to protect the infrastructure and the investment that the city and government has made in the inner city.
On the issue of a lack of political will, which you say is to blame, is it because the politicians are so far removed from the impact of this crisis? The fact that buildings are being hijacked, people are living in squalor, they are poor, they are desperate, they need safe and affordable housing in the inner city. Has there been a lack of political will because the elite, the political elite, are not directly affected, so they simply don't care to fix it, because whether the situation improves or not, their lives continue as normal?
Well, I think that the other priorities, the focus has always been, outside the inner city, and they have not been paying, close attention to the inner city. I think it was around 2017 or 18 where council released 82 buildings for development in the inner city, and those buildings were expropriated. But what happened after that, nobody can tell you. None of us in council can tell you how far is the process, in terms of that particular development. The other issues of hijacked buildings, there are quite a number of cases that have been reported. GFIS's report is investigating some of the cases, but we cannot tell you exactly where are they in terms of investigation. So we have not paid, close attention, to the programs that are there, to respond to the issues that people are faced in the inner city. So the focus, in fact, has really been outside the inner city, and that has been the problem. And that's why now, even people who are coming now to try and introduce some of the programs, it's very difficult to implement them, because the problem started a long time ago, and there's quite a lot of work that still needs to be done for us to fix all these problems that are within the inner city.
With that in mind, what do you make then of the sudden flurry of traffic by politicians in the city of Johannesburg who are all going there? We're seeing now raids and inspections at some of the illegal buildings in the inner city. Is that a genuine attempt at addressing the problem, or the typical political posturing that often follows moments of crisis?
Well, it's because of the incident. Just give it 2 months and see if they'll still be there. None of them, in fact, will be there. This problem has been there for quite some time, and there's not been, positive response to it. I'm talking about the program that was done in 2017 or 2018. Even when I was the MMC of Human Settlements, we acquired building, some of the building that we had demolished because we were trying to mitigate against the incidents that were repeatedly happening in the building. But the reality is that, there's not been even, enough allocation of resources for other departments to be able to continue with the programs that they've introduced. The provincial government, for instance, has not been allocating money to the city of Johannesburg for the provision of decent human settlements. But they've been there on the ground, talking as if there is something that they are going to do. So you will see them busy, doing raids, talking to the issues of hijack, but just give it a few months, they would have forgotten about this and they would be carrying on with their lives.
I remember a conversation that I had with you on air when you were still the housing MMC in Johannesburg. I think this was shortly after one of the other building fires. It may have been the one around Kwamaimai, and one of the things that came out was around finding a mixed housing model, if you will, where there would, there would be affordable units provided for people. To date, there hasn't been a massive success on that score. So reflecting on your time then, and what you said about the lack of political will, do you think you left the portfolio with the people of the inner city in any better position than when you found it?
Well, we acquired buildings, we converted them, we allocated people into those buildings. I mean, one of the buildings that we acquired and rehabilitated was Skosana Court in Jeepistown. But even today, the building has not been allocated. The building that you are referring to, Kwamaimai, we demolished the building for the purposes of introducing a mixed development, the first of its kind in the inner city. We don't know what the process is because we left. There is a building that we acquired. The building was rehabilitated. Allocation has not been done. There are quite a number of projects that stalled when we left the office because there is lack of political will. People have no interest in attending, the plight of the issues that people are faced on a daily basis within the inner city, and we don't know where are those programs, whether they are proceeding with them or not. So we don't know what the process is, and it's quiet, because even if you go there to Kwamaimai, there's nothing happening. If you go to Skosana Court, there's nothing happening. The building is ready for allocation. We launched the building. The beneficiaries were identified, but we cannot tell you why it has not been allocated. You go to Netapec building. We don't know what is happening there. The allocation has not been done, but the building is ready for occupation. So there is lack of political will, and I heard government officials trying to blame your series and your Human Rights Commission as if they are standing in their way. They are unable, in fact, to engage themselves into processes, and they want to take the responsibility and shift it to other entities, whereas they should be the one that applies the law correctly so that when they start to implement whatever program that they have, they are not then found wanting.
Do you then think that the inquiry now announced by the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi, in light of what you were saying, for example, about how the provincial government has also not come to the party in terms of providing budget and resources to fully address the issue of hijacked buildings in the inner city, do you think this inquiry that was now going to look into what happened in Marshalltown last week and perhaps even some of the causes behind the issue of the hijacked buildings, do you think that will make a difference?
Well, it won't. I mean, why need an inquiry to establish what was the cause of the fire? I mean, inside the building itself, there were illegal structures, there were illegal connections. So just go to disaster management in the city, you will get the report, and try to develop the mitigation strategy against what is happening within the building. So you don't really need inquiries. I mean, this is just one waste of resources, of state resources, because that money should be channeled, in fact, into addressing the problem, not sitting in boardrooms and trying to investigate and establish exactly what happened, knowing very well what happened. I mean, everyone knows what happened, right? And I don't think it requires an inquiry, to really, establish exactly what happened. So they just need to go to disaster management, get a report, and then develop